Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Artists Make Money podcast, where artists share their thoughts and feelings about money. I'm your host, VIVIENNE EGAN. I'm an interactive theatre and comedy producer, a podcaster, and also a freelance business writer. And I love digging into how different artists have forged their path and created their careers. Today's guest is Alexandra Plim, an abstract visual artist, singer and actor, and she also performs in Hot Dub Time Machine with her husband DJ Tom Loud. If you haven't heard of it, you must check it out. An international dance party sensation. It's one of the best nights you'll ever have. I have known Alexandra for over 10 years, so you will have to forgive us if we occasionally forget that we are recording a podcast. We talked about her life as an artist and as a parent and how those two things combined, how she got going as an artist selling on Instagram, and she gave absolutely loads of solid gold advice on how to get started and how to price your work and how to find publicity and all that kind of stuff. And we talked as well about some of her other sources of work and income. So I hope you enjoy the show.
Plim, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm very well.
Good. Would you like to tell the people who you are and how you make your money?
I, at the moment, am a visual artist. My name is Alexandra Plim. My married name is still Alexandra Plim.
Very important to point out.
I know, it seems important to me. But I just go with my name. Some people have like a artist name or like a Alex Makes Art name, as their business name, but it's just my name. And I make mostly large, sometimes small, colourful, abstract paintings, and I sell them. That is what I do.
Yes. And you sell them incredibly well. So I think it was it about 3 years ago that you started painting?
Yeah.
Yes, right. And so you started putting stuff on Instagram, and I remember very clearly when you got to 400 followers and you made a post, and now you're on like 27,000.
It's a bit ridiculous because I didn't really engage with Instagram. I think at that kind of time between 2012 and 2016, I had my kids, so I wasn't really engaging with social media. So Instagram kind of started and whatever, and mostly I was just on Facebook, to communicate with friends and family. And then once my second child, who was born in 2016, I think I'd sort of about finished feeding her. So that was about 2017. And you just kind of wake up a bit in your brain and you can actually function. And I'm a creative person. So I was like, well, what am I going to do now in these? I was lucky. She napped and she slept. So I was like, well, I've got to do something. Otherwise I'm going to go mental. So I'd seen literally someone on Instagram. I joined Instagram. I had 4 photos that I'd ever posted between 2011 and 2017. And I looked up, art, and I looked up body positivity, and I started to follow a couple of people. And this girl literally put down a piece of paper on the ground with some tape or on her table or whatever, and just started painting on it in bright colours. And I was like, oh my God, that's what I want to do. I can paint in bright colours like that. I love painting. You can paint like that on paper. You don't have to have canvas or anything like that. And then I started following her, and I was like, well, I've got a piece of paper, I've got some paints. I'd always sort of did a little bit of painting just for Christmas presents and that kind of thing, because I quite enjoy it. We're crafty types, we can't help ourselves. And every nap time and every night time I would set myself up with paper. I got some paints from the $2 shop, and I'd just go at it like a crazy person. And sharing them online was sort of an established part of the process. Not that I had anyone to follow it, but I think when I got to 500, I was like, oh my God, I'm famous.
Yeah, well, I was very impressed.
But it is funny. I think some people who have joined Instagram recently are like, oh my God, it's so slow. Because when I got on in 2017, everyone's like, oh, they've really slowed stuff down. And since then, again, I think think I got in late in the early kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I find though that whenever there's some like a trend, that whenever you join, you always feel like you are
you're
the party. And I remember like doing stuff like when I was first started freelance writing, and I would try and join these like, you know, websites like Upwork or whatever where you can like bid for work. And I remember thinking, oh, I'm way too late to the party on this. And then I remember years later someone having huge success on it that had, you know, started like, you know, 2017, like years after I'd said, oh no, I'm too late. And they were going, oh, I was quite late to this party. And like,
yeah, everyone feels like they're behind. Like, we're still young. Like, there are other people that I know that I'm good friends, and they're starting in their 50s and 60s.
Wow.
You know?
That's awesome.
We got in early.
Yeah. Early is a construct. So what was your first thing that you sold on Instagram?
On Instagram specifically,
or anywhere.
But I think anywhere, I think I'd set up the Instagram and I'd started painting to a point where the paintings in my house were taking up a huge amount of space. Like, I imagine like paintings stacked up in front of a fireplace, and then the paintings just like grow and grow until like a quarter of the room, and you have to walk around them. And pretty encouraging. He's a creative sort of person too. And was like, well, what are we going to do with all these paintings? And every time people came over, which wasn't very often because we have children, but if they did come over, it would be a couple of people at the time. I'd be like, so everyone, pick the painting. Which one do you want to take home? You like 2? Great, take 2, you know. And he was like, no, you should sell them, you know, like get a market stall. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to get a market stall. So I got a market stall for $50, table in the market hall at our local food and organic veggie market.
Is this Marrickville Markets?
Yeah, Marrickville Markets.
Good.
I was like, really? Go out there? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm just going to stand there with my stuff. Like, I've got that much stuff, and I made it all ready to sell. So, you know, I'd made cards and I worked out what the prices were, and I had the wrapping, how I was going to wrap it. And of course, you've got to, you know, get everything there, set it all up, get your setup down. And I was sharing that on Instagram. And I think a couple of people who locally maybe who followed me, then they came down. And yeah, must have been like nearly 9 o'clock. We'd only just finished setting up. And people are there for food, but not like sort of most people come probably later, like 10 till 2. But the people who are hardcore people who are like power walking or getting their veggies, they come early. And I'd done sales, but I worked in sales for 10 years, like in retail. So it wasn't like the first time I did. I know for some people who've like never sold anything in their life, that can be so terrifying. So at least I had that under my belt. I was like, hi, how you going? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, how much is that? I'm like, so $40, thinking it's like the biggest, hugest. And she's like, oh, great, I'll take that. I was just like, oh my God, like, oh my, I don't know you. I'm not related to you. You don't know any of my family or friends. Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, she was thrilled. And I had a great day. And I think I did that 3 or 4 times over a space of a couple of months. And yeah, every single time is still a shock. Like now when someone's like, oh, hi, I love this painting on Instagram. And I do get a lot of people through my Instagram. I have a website as well. And I'm on a couple of sort of art selling platforms. But mostly people buy my art in person through Instagram and through my website. You say, oh, I love this painting. How much is it? And every time I'm like, it's $2,800. And they're like, yeah, great. Can you ship it to me? Send me an invoice. I've paid it already. And, you know, it's very rare that you get someone's like, oh, it's just a bit out of my budget, or I'll ask my husband or something. But every time it's still like a shock. And eventually, you try and put your prices up because everyone spent the last 3 years going, your prices are too cheap. You're crazy. You need to put them up. because a lot of people who have money, they don't like to buy cheap things. They like to buy expensive things. People who have no money like to buy cheap things. So you've got to have both. Anyway, so that whole like money mindset thing is a whole nother game of like being confident in, saying, I've worked this hard, I've done the, and then you're like, it's just a piece of paper. I can't for much, it's just a thing, I could just put it in the recycling. Like, for $40. Tom's like, you crazy? That should be like $150. You've like cut each one out, you've found what the picture is, you've mounted it like professionally, it's all like presented. You're crazy to sell that for $40. That was up from 20. So this time I'm like, I'm going to charge 40, but I'm going to add postage. He's like, it's ridiculous. You're like giving it away. I'm like, no, everyone has their right point. As someone said on another podcast I was listening to the other day, you need to have your gift shop and your gallery.
What's the difference between the gift shop and the gallery?
Well, the gift shop are things like, small handmade things, smaller paintings. A lot of people do prints. I don't do prints because I just can't get my mind around it, and I paint a lot. So I was like, well, there's no point. I'll just have smaller, cheaper paintings, and then I'll have bigger, more expensive paintings. And so, yeah, things like I've got handmade cards I did for Christmas because I thought everyone's at home, and if anyone's going to send a Christmas card, it's going to be this year. So I made some like original art prints, little tiny blank cards, and they went off like a frog in a sock. So that kind of thing, and small works, small frame works, work on paper, just a little something for someone, and I know I didn't have any money for a long time. I probably only had 5, 15, 20, 100, 150, like that's like your top of your kind of gift giving kind of money for most people. So you have those kind of things, just like you would at the MCA or the art gallery. And then you've got the other paintings, 480, 500, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, depending on their size. You can actually have both. Like it is okay to have those smaller things, but they are for different people.
Perfect. And how do you reach those different audiences, or are they just all the same like marketing channels?
Some people that are always going to come through galleries, but I think so far really savvy art buyers are across both. And that's the thing is, I don't know, if someone sent me a message, they could be freaking loaded and they want to buy a painting, or someone might be, like a young couple who've just bought their first house or just moved in together, students. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is my first piece of art, and it's $80 or it's $500 or it's a 21st or something like that. So it is, you can't judge. You just have to go, no, well, this is my price, and if they can afford it, they'll buy it, and if they can't, they won't, or they'll save up. Like I've had people come back years later, go, when I see the one, I'll come back. But it is funny. Instagram is it's a leveler. Like you're not going to get, unless you have money or are an artist or live next to a gallery or know someone who runs a gallery or know an artist, you're just not going to go into a gallery. Like I love art, but like there are some galleries that I still haven't had the balls to go into. I'm like, what would I even do? Like I just look at it's free. You can go, because people still, like if I've had a show in a gallery, like a tiny little gallery, and will be like, can I come in? Is it free? I'm like, yes, please come in, come and have a look, no obligation to buy. But there is still that kind of, am I allowed? Is everything going to be $20,000? Am I allowed to even breathe the same air as those paintings? So there's a lot of people that are never going to go in a gallery. Whereas if they've seen someone who's seen you and they've tagged you and you went to someone's school and you like pink or whatever, and that person's like, yeah, I'm going to get a contact and go, oh my God, I love that. It's sort of, and it's not just sort of self-made artists that are on Instagram. It's every artist is on Instagram. It doesn't matter whether you're 70, 80, just starting out, recent graduate, non-graduate. It's like the white pages, the yellow pages.
Yeah. Well, it's the perfect medium for it.
Like someone said to me the other day, you on LinkedIn? I'm like, no, is it on fucking They were like, oh no, but like some gallery people I'm like, well, those gallery people are also on Instagram. If they can't find me on LinkedIn, they can Google my name. My website will come up. But it just happens to be a visual thing. It's magic, addictive magic.
Oh, I bet. Especially when you start getting into the big numbers of followers.
Well, it's just hard to, turn your business off. I think that's any kind of small business that you run your own business from home. Like that is so hard. You work from home, you're in your business, or you work with your partner in your home, and then all of a sudden you see an email or something and you're like, oh my God, I've just got to do this. And Tom's like, well, what are you doing? Why are you doing your phone now? And we're both hopeless. We get stuck in, or we check an email at 10:30 and then all night are like, it is hard to turn it off. But then you've got that added social media thing as well, which is like very addictive. But for some people, it can be a real problem. But you sort of have to try and set boundaries. I'm not very good at it.
How long did it take you to make an income from your art?
Well, it's tricky because my main income at that time, my husband is DJ and we have a business called Hot Tub Time Machine, and we are 50-50 in that business. So our agreement was that I would look after the children because I was really into that, and he would go and make the money. And that was really good. So mentally, I was like, I'm getting paid for this, mothering and housework and just keeping all that shit together. So I had that income, and we get a salary for that. So, and there were times after Lizzie when we were really skint. But I think by the time we had Maddie in 2017, we were a little bit more comfortable. So I was like, I'll just go and buy one canvas. Tom's like, what are you talking about? Just go and buy 5 canvases. And I'm like, oh, but I'll get them from the $2 shop. He's like, well, no, you could just go to an art shop, because I still have that kind of poverty mindset, so used to not having any money. He's like, no, well, you can just, I'd be like, oh, I don't want to buy too much paint or use it. He's like, no, just go and get whatever you want. Like, we're not millionaires, but it's not a waste. It is hard to overcome that. But I think there was a lot of art supplies bought for a long time. And to actually make a profit, I think probably 2018. So within a year. And then 2019, so that was last year, that was a definite profit. But then as you start paying for other things like a gallery, commissions, people taking a commission if you sell through a gallery, framing. So I think this year I haven't had as many sales because of COVID. I've sold lots of paintings, but I couldn't make as many paintings because we were homeschooling. So there was a great gap in production where I sold everything I had. People came to my house like, we're going to go into lockdown. I have to come and get these paintings today. I'm like, okay, sure, that's fine. They're like, can I see everything? I'll get that, and I'll get a small one, and I'll get that for my friend, blah, blah, blah. Like, people were crazy. Like,
panic buying art.
Oh, yeah. And, it was a risk doing an exhibition. I think I had too many paintings. I always have too many paintings. It's a terrible problem. I think I had like 38 paintings, but we sold at least 22, all of them big. Sold all the big ones, not as many small ones. I don't know what 22 out of 37 is, but it was a fairly good margin. My husband was like, oh God, because he was going through, because was doing it on the business card. So immediately I was like, well, this is, if you're going to sell them, then you're like, okay, I was just doing it through my personal account. And then suddenly we're like, oh my God, that's like $20,000. Like, we have to declare this, like this needs to be legal. We need to get this down. You need a business card to go and buy this like pretty quickly. And he was having to go through and do all of the tallying of the like balancing all your expenses and stuff like that. And there was so much, me buying so much art supplies, but then also lots of stuff coming in that pretty quickly, we had to like make it, I had an art account, I had a card for that account, I had a business PayPal and a personal PayPal. Like, pretty quickly, he was like, no, this is real money. Like, we're so terrified of getting in trouble with the tax, but we do everything by the book. Someone's like, oh, pay cash. Tom's like, no, you want everything in FPOS. We want everything EFT. We need to follow the letter. you know. So that's been really good and quite easy to manage, especially since I got that separate art account. It does make me feel legit, although it is terrifying, you know, like if I made a certain amount from my exhibition, but you haven't made the money yet, and all you can see, it just keep going to the frame. I just go, boop, boop, another $1,000, boop, another $1,000. It's like, oh my God, like it's worked into the thing. Like it will get paid for, but yeah, it's slightly terrifying.
So you have to have that money up front before you get paid from the income.
Yeah. Whereas like if I sell a painting on Instagram, like I send someone an invoice, they pay me immediately, or they pay a deposit and then they pay, you know, over an agreed amount of time. That's really easy to set up. I just do like a PayPal thing and they could pay it off bit by bit, which was just magic. I was doing it like through the gallery and they were taking a commission, so I didn't get paid until after the exhibition had finished, and even then I've only been paid like 75%, so I'm still waiting for some more. Whereas when I organize things myself, like the money just comes in, you know. So deciding between the two of those, or having a little bit of gallery and then doing a lot of the stuff myself, it's tricky. Half of you are like, I want to be represented by a gallery and I don't want to do anything. And at the same time, as soon as I deal with the gallery, I'm like, I don't want to deal with the gallery. I just want to do everything myself. There's a lot of business. There's emails and there's messages and keeping on touch with what paintings going where. I've got paintings freaking everywhere in the house, all over the world, bloody on their way to places. And there's quite a lot of business, you know, like you really want to focus on like the art. You don't want to think about it.
How much time do you spend on the business stuff?
Probably a little bit every day. Tallying the expenses and stuff, that's pretty easy now. It just goes on the business card and then you go in and you go click, click, click. That's from there. That's a sale. That's art expenses. That's travel. That's shipping. That, you know, going through ticking it off. That's really efficient through Xero now. That's really good, because there was that weird bit, where Tom was doing that and it was just like, well, I don't know where these things are. Where are you even getting this stuff? So that's pretty good. But there's things like, dealing with a client, dealing with a gallery, sending emails, all the paintings, they all need to be photographed. Every single painting, if you want to sell a painting, it needs to be photographed. I'm pretty lucky. I get away with photographing everything myself on my iPhone. I got several upgrades because I accidentally threw my iPhone down a storm drain at the front of my house and it floated away. So I have a very, very expensive phone, but it does take really nice photos. So that was one, an expense, but two, something I use every day. Taking the photos, getting the measurement, getting the paintings finished, ready to hang, getting them framed, doing all the things, adding them to my website, working out how much they should be. I mean, pricing something, that's a whole nother nightmare. You could spend the amount of podcasts I listened about like pricing your art. It's just like, oh my God. I don't know, a certain percentage of every day, a third, 20%. I don't know. There's a bit.
Yeah, pretty decent chunk.
But also we're not completely skint, although 2020 has been shit for the hot tub budgets. But, you know, we have a roof over our heads and we're relatively comfortable. But just I don't have to sort of count every tube of paint I buy. I just like, it's all going to get used and I can't throw anything out. So I'm still using paint that I've had for years. I'm still using canvases and paper that I've had for years. I've got like a box of frigging slate and tile here from reverse garbage because obviously I'm assemblage. You know, every piece of cardboard, I'm like, oh my God, I could paint on that. Shipping things, I have a metre and a half roll of bubble wrap here.
Oh,
you know, and then you need boxes. Like, if you're wrapping a metre by metre painting, you need to go and buy boxes. It's cheaper to buy them in 10. They're in a set of 2, and then you buy 10 of those. So technically you have 20 flat boxes the size of a ginormous flat screen TV. Where the fuck do you put those? Tape, fragile tape, a printer, printing like labels, going to the post office, booking things with couriers. Like there is, probably a third. But you do get better at it. It is one of those things you just have to ask a bunch of people and then just figure it out yourself. I'm a figure it out myself person. So, but I get people all the time going, how do you do this? I'm like, have you thought of Googling it?
Have you considered like you could get a virtual assistant or someone to do the uploading to your website, for example, or like.
I could, and some people have that. Like a couple of the galleries, they're like, oh, well, yes, I send it off to someone else. And I'm like, you know what? My website is so easy. I do it in like 10 seconds. It's so easy, the back end of my website. I look at Tom's WordPress. I'm like, what the fuck is that? No, I could do everything myself. It's really very quick. I would love to outsource shipping, but I have not found an effective way to do that. Basically, just shipping anything would be $500. Still got to work out transit insurance. For some reason, TNT isn't insuring original artwork anymore. Everyone's been paying for this unrestricted warranty, and it just isn't going to do shit if actually something happens. So I do actually need to get some kind of blanket transit insurance for paintings that are being shipped, because, they get thrown. Small things go with Australia Post, and it's fantastic. You can pay for extra insurance. It's all tracked. You can have things signed. But if it's bigger, it's just going with any courier, unless it's like a $50,000 piece of artwork, which I don't have. Then it's going obviously with a proper art thing.
Yeah.
But my art is relatively cheap. So if it's a $2,000 painting and someone's paying $500 for the shipping, like that's a big commitment. And we're in Australia. So if someone wants something in America, dealing with those kind of boring things, I would love one day to be able to outsource that a bit more, because it's very time consuming. Layer, every box needs to be hand cut, cut to size, wrapped, boxed, bubbled again, boxed again. That's very time consuming. I kind of enjoy it, but it takes a long time.
All the things that I'm sure you just never dreamed that you would be thinking about when you started your Instagram account.
Well, no, but it is, and the good thing is there's lots of other people who have done it. So I'm like following them. There's so many YouTube videos and stuff that you can watch, is like how I send this and how I send this that gets in a tube, and how that's amazing, because otherwise you'd have to know someone, or you'd have to just try things and hope they work. So I am lucky that, I'm not the first person to sell art on Instagram. There's a good 5,000 other people before me. But it is funny, like it's in comparison to, say, acting, which I still love and I would love to do again, it's very straightforward. There's still that kind of, you get chosen by the upper echelons of the gallery. There's still that kind of thing happening, It's funny, you can listen to Ken Doan talk about, the art establishment, whoever they may be, like he's never had a massive painting or any painting acquired by any like major public institution. And yet he's one of the most recognized artists. But for some reason, he's not whatever, But apart from that, really, because of the internet's terrible. The internet's so good on the other side for breaking down the barriers between people who want to buy stuff or consume creative stuff, whether it's people making videos on YouTube or streaming or creative live performance or whatever. Selling art just works like a gem, and it just connects people, especially people who aren't artsy at all, and they're like, oh my God, like, is that where you work? Oh my God, that's so messy. Wow, tell me all about it.
Yeah, it takes away those gatekeepers and those doors that you go, oh, am I allowed in there, as you were saying before. And it means that people can just pick up a paintbrush, and like with acting, like there is, unless you sort of, the equivalent would be making YouTube videos or something. Yeah,
that, or, which I didn't have the time to do, it didn't appeal to me, or it didn't get done. Writing my own show, getting a theatre show up on something, and now people do self-testing, and you can record voiceover in your cupboard, and you can set yourself up as, like, they would kind of be the equivalent things now, which sort of 15 years ago hadn't quite happened. It was still like get an agent and stay ready, but like wait for the phone call, and even that the auditions weren't quite accessible. Like, I've never been able to audition for the Sydney Theatre Company, Belvoir Stables, or for what I don't even know when those auditions happen. I still have no idea. But it's very like, oh, well, I've got a thing. Here it is. I've made this. I felt this way. Buy my thing. People are like, oh my God, I love that. I'm going to buy that.
That must be very validating.
Well, it is, because, you know, like the effort that I put into painting a painting is the same kind of effort and focus and experimentation that I would put into doing a rehearsal or performing on stage. So like when I'm in that flow, when I'm painting, you're going through the same things. You're connected, you're not connected, you're thinking, you're experimenting, you're trying new things, you're fucking hating it. You're like, what am I doing? And then somehow you're like, oh my God, that's really great. But then you've got this thing. I've never really been paid for a full like production, so I've probably never experienced that. But like getting your check, you know, it doesn't always compute. And to even get my work in a gallery, I mean, that seemed like ridiculous in 2017.
We talked about like what where you spend your money like within your business. What do you do with your money personally? Are you like a spender? Are you a saver? Where does it go?
I'm half. I think because I have kids, your income, I just don't buy a lot of stuff for myself anymore. Products, I buy stuff for them, but they don't really need anything. Mostly what I spend my money on is food and wine. I mean, we spend our money on our house. We bought a house for the first time. I mean, we rented until 2016. And then we bought a house, so some money goes into that. We spent money on building this studio on top of our house, but mostly I spend all of my money on art supplies and food. Like a special treat is to go, and I live in like the inner west of Sydney. There's like fantastic coffee shops frigging everywhere. When we moved in here, I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to get a coffee? Like I have to walk to Petersham or Dulwich Hill. How am I going to decide? And then lovely Sam opened a coffee shop at the top of my street, and it's like baking handmade bagels, and now does like squirrels and, you know, and just like the best coffee ever. So yeah, my indulgence is definitely food and wine, especially after like not drinking a lot while you're pregnant and breastfeeding. I do feel like my thirst for it is very deep, and because you're not socializing with friends, especially this year, I'm just like, what the relaxation I get from drinking that glass of red wine is like right up there. We used to spend a lot of money on our travel, but certainly that hasn't happened. But I think when I was like at uni and I was on Centrelink and I had $0, you would get into this thing where you're just desperate to spend money. And I think as well, I worked in retail, so I saw people spending money all the time. And so I was like, oh, I just want money so I can spend it and buy nice clothes and do stuff. But certainly, yeah, most of my money goes on food, wine and art supplies.
What a classic combo. I wanted to ask about, so you've mentioned Tom, who also is a full-time creative. Did you ever get any sort of pushback, sort of saying like, oh, well, you know, you can't buy a house, raise a family on a creative income? Like,
from him, or do you mean from family?
From other people.
Yeah, it's funny because before, like me, I've always, like, I finished school and I went straight into design for theatre and television, and that was the sensible choice because what I really wanted to do was go straight into acting. But they're like, you know, you're so good at like organising things and stuff, so, you know, you really should get another degree. I mean, I could have gone and done anything. I ended up finishing, I did like a literature degree, but, you know, I could have done teaching, or I was interested in so many other things, but I really, really wanted to do something creative. So I went straight into that. So already my parents knew that I was going to do something creative. It was going to be backstage management or something like that. Was just, it was pretty obvious. I'm there dressed up like Mary Poppins, you know, singing in the garden. Like, it was obvious. And my brother ended up being like an outdoorsy guy. So neither of us are like normal people. And then, you know, and then I sort of did that, and then I went into acting, which is like even more ridiculous for trying to have a normal life. And And it's not like we'd had that life modeled to us. It was just like, well, just that's what we're going to do. My family were pretty supportive. But obviously we always had to pay our own way. So either we had a job or we had, like when we were very young, before I had a job, I was on Centrelink because they didn't have like money to support us. We always had to support ourselves. And then sort of when I met Tom, he actually had a creative job. He did sound, post-production sound mixing for TV, which was creative, but still pretty 9 to 5, really. It was very stable. He worked in a sound studio. He had a regular employer, and that was pretty set up. But after a certain amount of time, he was like, well, I've got to the top of the TV industry. Short of starting my own sound studio, I could go to America and try and get into movies, but start at the bottom. But he was kind of at that like 30s, maybe want to settle down thing. But for whatever reason, he decided then to go do DJing, which is, you know, a slightly ridiculous thing. And there's me like, oh, I do acting and work in a shop. So I don't know, like I think his family at that point would have liked him to be able to like settle down and buy a house and stuff. But he was just ready to like jump. Maybe he'd caught on my like crazy theatre vibes and was like, I want to do a show. I'm going to shine on stage. I don't know. Because he was like, oh, I don't even want to talk on the microphone. Like, I want to play songs, but I don't even want to talk on the mic. And now he's like, yes, motherfuckers, put your hands in the air, you know, jumping around like a maniac.
Yeah.
But I think once he proved that it could kind of work, and yes, there were some times when we were very skint and we were stuck overseas once and we had to get his parents to send us money, but we had a baby, so they're like, whatever you want. Sometimes I was like, I just wish I could do something normal. I just wish I could be a teacher. You know, so many people are like, oh my God, you'd be a great teacher. And you know what? I probably would be a great teacher, and maybe I will teach in the future. But it just not doing what you want to do is so painful.
I was once told by a friend's dad who worked in film. He was like, don't go into this industry, by which he meant like the creative, the arts, unless you can't do anything else. Yeah. Like unless it's impossible for you to do anything else. And I was like, I see.
If you could not do acting and get away with doing stage management or costume design or whatever, which I was pretty much interested in, but by doing those things, you then find out how interested you are. And I got to third year and was like, look, I like it, but I'm not like, it's not my thing. I want their job. But yeah, I know a lot of people who have had no support from family and friends and even partners are like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you spending all this money? Some people have had a real rough trot, but I've been really, really lucky.
We've kind of talked about this already, but do you have hang-ups about money?
Definitely. I kind of felt really confident this year that I'd like put my prices up like heaps. Like I was really going for it. If I can make the paintings when the kids go back to school, I'll do a show, not a problem. But by the time I'd done that, I got there and I'm like, I actually need my prices to be double that to actually make any money. By the time like the gallery takes a 33%, and that's a standard minimum commission for a gallery, and like they're struggling. Like a lot of galleries are struggling. A lot of galleries are going through the roof. But I think like the next kind of level up that are just never going to be touched by this kind of financial stuff, because all those people who they can still buy cars and art and house stuff, but they can't travel, and at some point they couldn't have like lunches and stuff, and they can't travel overseas to buy art. So all that sort of high-end stuff, they're just going gangbusters. But then the sort of lower to mid, it can really vary. But yeah, by the time they take a 33% commission, if you have any framing, to cover the cost of your supplies, to cover the cost of, you know, I can't get a large painting like this in my car. Every single time I need to move a painting either to a gallery or to the framer or whatever, you know, like, and those kind of costs add up. I worked out I spent $3,000 on go-gets last year. And I was like, oh my God, that's so much money. And Tom was like, really? In the scheme of things, it's not. Like, you move that much art all over the place. Really, it's not that much. I was like, I need a van. I need to get a van now. Maybe I will still get my dream van. I want like one of those small ones. But I just drive that go-get high ace anymore. I'm going to die. One time I drove it all the way to the other side of the ocean without my lights on. My father-in-law, who came to help me move the painting, we were both like, why is it so dark? Like, are the street lights out? Like, we just couldn't work it out. And then I nearly like reversed it into this person's garage in the middle of the night because, I had this huge, like 1.8 meter painting, but it hadn't, obviously I hadn't put enough money on it for me to just go, okay, well, I'm just going to get it professionally delivered by an art courier, which is going to be, I don't know, $180, even if it's only around the corner. But I think, charging for paintings, I definitely have hang-ups. It's like, is it worth it? Have I put enough time in? I don't have a degree in art. I don't have a Master's of Fine Arts. I'm not affiliated with a major gallery yet. I've only been painting for 4 years. Like some people have been painting for 20 years, So certainly, charging the prices and having the confidence to charge those prices. I certainly have some hang-ups about that, but I'm really trying to motivate myself to be confident with that. And it also changes the way you paint. Like I'm doing some commissions at the moment, and I should be so grateful for those commissions, but the amount of work I've put in them. Like one girl, lovely lady, really wanted another painting in the exhibition and she missed out. So I was like, all right, I'll do this for you. I'll do a commission for you. She's like, oh, but we just need it a little bit smaller. So I'm like, okay, all right, I'll do it a little bit smaller. So it's a little bit less money. But I should be, like, all commissions should be $5,000. I've put so much work into this thing. Like Tom is like, you've got to stop. Like you've done $5,000 to $10,000 work on a $1,800 painting. Like if this was a normal job, if this was like the amount of overtime you've done and like emotional problems and counseling sessions you've required as a result of doing, like it's just, like if it was a money thing, if it was a real job, like it would be a $10,000 painting. But I'm still only getting $1,800 minus framing, minus the cost of the canvas, minus the cost of the paint, and minus the commission from the gallery for that one. It is something I just need to constantly look at because I will break even, I think, this year. Last year I made a profit, which was amazing. Tom was like, oh my God, you made a profit. Like, oh my God, I made a profit. Because I tried to buy more expensive art materials and then go, okay, well, I need to charge more money. If I've paid $150 for this canvas rather than $80 for this canvas, then I need to charge more. If I'm going to buy the expensive paints, when I moved from the $2 shop paint to the art store paint, I was like, oh, I need to charge more money. There's a big gap between the $2 shop paint and the art shop money. So to encourage myself to feel like, okay, well, I have to charge this much money in order to cover that cost. But I still need to put them up. So, there's certainly hang-ups about that. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. We're all like muddling along, especially when there's no like standard, right? There's no like, you can't be like, oh, what are the industry rates for this? And it's like anything from $50 to $50,000. So, and like the thing with money, like you say, some people just have money and they're like, yep, sure. It's like, it's kind of, we live in a system where it's like, it's worth whatever someone will pay for it.
I know.
Like, let's
have that. A painting sold before the show even opened to a lovely lady, and she was not the kind of lady maybe walking into a gallery that you would think would buy a painting, but she immediately bought 2 paintings, so you can never tell. Really lovely, so excited. I said, look, it's a beautiful painting. Would you mind if we hang on to it for the show? And then I think about in the second week of the show, we'd already sold like a good amount of stuff. We were really happy. And then someone came in on the weekend and was like, oh, I need to buy that. And the guy in the gallery was like, oh, I'm really sorry. It's got a red sticker on it. It's sold. Glad you like it though. And she's like, no, I need to buy that. Like, I need to buy that. I need to buy it now. And he's like, sorry. And he's worked in banking. So he's like, well, how much would you pay for it? And they're like, okay, this much, which was sort of it was like $9.90, and they offered $1,500 for it, which is a good thing for me because I'm like, okay, well, someone will reasonably pay for that size frame painting $1,500. That person, I'm like, okay, well, that's a good thing. He's like, just 1 minute. Ran across the road to where the lady lived and was like, hi. So, that painting you bought, here's the thing for you. I can sell it for someone else and then you get $400, or you can like buy like a bigger painting. And she did in the end. She's like, fuck it, I'll get 2 more paintings.
Wow.
But the audacity of that person to even ask. But also, like, some people, they get desperate. you know, it's like maybe it is worth $1,500.
Totally. In a sort of similar vein, so my sister-in-law, she gets like furniture off the street and refurbishes it and paints it, and she sells them on Facebook, and she does really well out of it. And she had this pair of like bedside tables that she had done that they'd found in the alley behind their house. So like, you know, and they were in a state, and they like, this is my brother and her, she like did it all up, put it on for $400. She takes it over to this lady buying it, and the woman goes, you sure you can't haggle the price down? And she's like, no, the price is the price, it's going to stand firm. And she's like, all right then, and then hands over $800 because she thought that it was $400 each.
$400 each. Oh my god.
So my sister-in-law just goes, thank you.
Writing Christmas cards person. Oh my god.
Yeah.
It is. It's in the eye of the beholder. Like,
totally. Yeah. And when we're coming from this like sort of scarcity mindset, work in retail.
And because you do, some people will always ask for a discount, whether they're rich or some people will always ask for a discount, and sometimes they will ask for a discount on the Mercedes, they will ask for a discount in the baby shop, they will ask for a discount in Woolworths. Doesn't matter where they go, they will ask for a discount because 50% of the time it works out great for them, whereas I would never have the audacity to ask for a discount. But that's just like standard practice for some people. And I was talking to a friend of mine, she's a photographer, and she's sort of been at it 3 or 4 years now. She takes beautiful photos, like really beautiful. She's found her own sort of style. It's really taking off. And then she's like, I really need to put my prices up because I'm putting in so much work. And I know people are charging more than me, like so much more than me. But then I will still have people ask for a discount. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not because you're too expensive. It's because they will ask. And she's like, yeah, I know that because they have like a Mercedes S-Class. And then I'm like, why are they asking? I'm like, just because if you are $900, they're going to ask for a discount. If you're $600, they're going to ask. Some people will always ask for a discount. And it's very hard to take. And you just need to be really firm or put your prices up so then you can like do 10%. But someone was like, no, I'm not giving you a discount. My prices are already so low.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Yes.
There's something always going to no matter how much money they have.
That is a very wise learning, I think. What advice would you give to someone who is starting out in doing what you're doing? What would you do now?
Or creative stuff in general?
Creative stuff in general, or art, Instagram, anything.
I say creative stuff in general. Like when I was 18, I was so you're so young when you're 18. Oh my God. Like you're so young when you're 25. Like, but I was really, because having been through school, you're like, okay, well, I learn a certain amount of stuff and then I get a mark for that. And then therefore, like I know that stuff, I can do it. So I really felt that I needed to go to a school, like an acting school or NIDA or whatever, in order to, one, feel confident in my skills and like be able to like prove that I had that kind of achievement. And then for painting, for when I started painting, having already done 2 qualifications, one in design for theatre and in television with an add-on of thingo, then I did 3 years of theatre training. I was a little bit older and I never have considered like going and doing a fine arts, which is a big shift for me because I would have been like, right, I want to be an artist. I'm going to do fine arts. I'm going to go and either do a TAFE course or I'm going to go to COFA. And some people are like, oh, well, you're going to go and study painting now. And I'm like, well, no, like I am doing it. Like I'm studying it now. Like if I was 18, I would have gone and done that. And then some people will go and do a Master of Fine Arts or go to COFA or go to National Art School or something like that. But I was sort of just be confident in your own ability. Like, yeah, there's going to be stuff that you have to learn along the way. But if you're the kind of person that learns by experimentation and you like teach yourself, like I have a huge thing of books here that I'm constantly referring to. I'm making networks with other artists, which takes time because I knew no artists. Like with my like 2 followers, and I didn't know a single artist except for someone's mum. She's a ceramicist and she's mad, but she's been a ceramicist forever, you know, in like legitimate circles as well, you know, like in big art galleries. And I was like, well, Jesus, if she can do it, I can do it too. Just take less drugs and I'll be fine. But yeah, just to have confidence in whatever it is that you're doing. Obviously, if you want to go and get a qualification, go and do that. But I think as like a self-taught artist, you can, just to have confidence in what you're doing at any stage. Because I didn't have the confidence to do that in acting. But now at 37, I'm like, I kind of want to go back, well, not go back, move forward into performance again with the crazy drive and confidence that I have put into this. Maybe it won't work, I don't know. But certainly just to be like, no, I know what I'm doing. I know my job. I've got certain skills. I can apply myself to this because I've applied all of my performance skills to my painting. And then maybe I can apply my painting skills to my performance. I don't know. Maybe it's something about you're just a little bit older or you've had kids and everyone's seen your vagina and you're like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to do anything. Maybe it's an age thing, but certainly, I find a lot of people have a lot of hang-ups about if they haven't had like a formal qualification in something. But so many painters or artists or actors or whatever don't have formal qualifications. And, you know, it's relatively new that you can actually go and do it at uni. In the olden days, you would have had to go and do an apprenticeship in the theatre or as a sculptor or whatever, you know. But yeah, I think it's a very modern thing to say, you know, I've done my course. But then so many people get out of National Art School and be like, I don't know how to deal with a gallery or adjust my photos or market my art or anything. So it's certainly, but yeah, I suppose it's that thing is you only do it if you know that you can't do anything else. You literally like can't not do it. It's a funny thing. But it's a miracle to me that it's a thing. And Tom's like, it's not a surprise. Of course you were going to do it. You were like, it wouldn't have mattered what you chose to do if you put that much time into it. Generally, it kind of works out sometimes. In Australia, everything's so spread out. So all of a sudden, there were shipping problems. Like there was things weren't coming in from art supplies weren't coming in from Europe. Nothing was coming in from China. Like the framers had no wood, also because of the bushfires, because everything in fucking burnt down. So you want real wood, but at the same time, if you have to cut down all the trees to get the wood, it's like maybe we shouldn't be framing all this stuff. Maybe we should be reproduction, like framing timber to like do this, like do like a sustainably forested kind of something. But yeah, there was no timber, no art supplies, nothing from like some of the like nice art supplies still come from like Italy. And then half the nice stuff comes from Melbourne. So there was nothing. It's like, oh my God. Even my bubble wrap, they're like, no, we can't deliver that. I'm like, oh my God.
Wow. So many things we didn't expect. I have one last question. Back when you were working in the kids' clothes shop, because that's what you were doing when we met, which was 10 years ago, by the way.
Yeah.
Did you ever imagine you would make a full-time living from creative stuff?
Seeds were sown, I think, a little bit, because I did a lot of stuff with the lady who ran the business, and it was a very self-made business because she basically started that business because like there was Kmart and Target, and then there was David Jones. Like in Australia 20 years ago, like there was this great, she's like, well, I'm just going to make them. I'm going to make the children's. And I'm going to start a thing and I'm going to make a shop. And they had secondhand clothes. They had wooden toy. Like they were really sort of in the beginning of that kind of thing. Obviously, they very quickly had to have them made in China because no one in Australia was willing to pay that much for clothes. But it was a very self-made kind of thing. And also doing a couple of people I met there in the shop were creatives. Were either musicians or artists. The girl working there was a dancer, and she's amazing. Like she's doing like bloody amazing contemporary dance pieces on the edge of the Art Gallery of New South Wales walls and like traveling the world. So I met a couple of other creative people there, and then also just that simple thing of folding these cards. So someone had designed these cards, and we were like hand stamping cards and selling them. So it went back to kind of that thing as a child where I was like making cards and selling them. So like having a store, like making cards, just, yeah, it just sort of certainly sowed some seeds, like having a shop, not so much like the painting, but certainly making things pretty. My favorite thing was doing the windows and the window design and coming up with the concepts for that. So I was always sort of using those sort of skills. But it's funny, actually, once I'd started painting, I was like, oh, well, what shop am I going to put my art in? I was like, I need to put them in her shop. And she did it. But at that stage, her shop had baby store to like a beautiful sort of home hipster sort of homewares kind of store. And then I could have my art in the shop. It just, I was like, oh, come full circle. But certainly, yeah, just a couple of people, and you're like, oh, they're making their cards and they're printing their cards, and that seemed sort of doable, you know, if you had something that you'd made creatively, and then you productized it. I wouldn't say that my art is completely productized it, but there is a certain aspect, like if you were an illustrator or something like that, yeah, you might be doing illustration jobs, but also you probably would have cards on Etsy or be like something, you know. It's that keeping your hand in kind of thing. Like in lockdown, I was like crocheting like a mad thing and like sticking random twigs together, and I like anything is possible, mate. If you stick a piece of tile and then a piece of slate together, it looks like the Anzac Bridge.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much for sharing your time. I know you're very busy and you've got kids and all kinds.
That's all right. Stay well over there. And
bye. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Artists Make Money podcast. You can and should find us on Instagram at Artists Make Money, where you can also sign up for our weekly newsletter. You can find me on Twitter at VIVIENNE41, and I would love to connect with you there. If you enjoyed the show, I would also love it if you could rate and review it on Apple Podcasts, as it really helps spread the word for the show. The theme music for this show was composed by Tiiva, that's Tiiva. You can check them out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Spotify. Being an artist is hard, and making a living from it is even harder. But I believe in you. Keep going.